coast to coast. Russ, Buddy Sotello, and myself, Dr. Mike Lano, back here. It is a jam-packed show tonight. We have two great guests. One is one of my longest friends in the wrestling business, total legend, honored, all of that. We do want to pay tribute right from the get-go to Daffney, Shannon's gorilla, who we lost her on the 1st, which I think was Wednesday. And it's been really tough for a lot of reasons. She was only 46 years of age. And one of the last voice messages I got from her that I've saved, she was so jazzed about a month ago to be moving into a new place, taking more college courses, all in this month, the month of September 2021. And you guys all know her, look at the web, all of the outpouring of love from her time starting in 1999 in WCW. I shot a ton of her. She was part of that triad team with David Flair and Crowbar Devon Storm. And then she went to TNA, Ring of Honor. Her big passion was Mike Bucci's WrestleCon conventions every year, the High Spots WrestleCon conventions. She loved seeing all of the fans and the people she'd work with through all these many groups. And got an email from Medusa Michelli today, and Brittany Brown and so many other female wrestlers, Despina Montaglia, all of these people outpouring of love for their comrade. We have a huge AEW pay-per-view, so right now it's going on. You can also order it, tomorrow, etc. But the Lucha Brothers are the new AEW Tag Team Champions. I believe Ruby Soho, I've not got that confirmed because I'm not watching it live, one surprise entrant, the former Ruby Riott from WWE. Now it's Ruby Soho after an excellent online campaign. She joined AEW, I think, but I'm not sure. She won the Casino Women's Battle Royal. Minoru Suzuki from New Japan supposedly on this show. In other news, so we'll keep talking about AEW before I bring up Rock Riddle. Don West says that he has beaten with chemotherapy his brain lymphoma cancer. That is awesome news. And, Paul White supposedly, the prediction is he's going to get a KO punch by Anthony Ogogo. So you remember his KO punch in WWE, but he, the former Big Show, is supposedly going to be knocked out in his match with QT Marshall by QT Marshall, his teammate Anthony Ogogo. And Julia Hart was out of the Women's Battle Royal through an angle last night on AEW Dark, so Ruby Soho's taken her place. And we might have Bobby Cruz from Ring of Honor call in to talk about Daffney, or Shan Daff as we all called her. But let me bring up a friend of mine since I think early 1975. I did his headshots, his initial Hollywood photo portfolio over a day or two shoot. I think we even went to Malibu Beach or Will Rogers State Beach around Santa Monica to shoot some of that stuff with pretty girls in the background, if I remember correctly. He's always been surrounded by pretty girls. This was a man who toured the territories. And once he was done conquering wrestling, he started with Rip Hawk's fan club, running Rip Hawk's fan club of Rip Hawk and Sweet Hansen in Mid-Atlantic, but went on to at least one, possibly more appearances on Soupy Sales, a ton of appearances on The Gong Show. He's got Hollywood Success, where he helps actors in a myriad of ways. He's done a lot, all the years I've been around Cauliflower Alley. And that is the one and only Mr. Wonderful, the first and now only Mr. Wonderful, Rock Riddle.
Ooh, the original. Yes, thank you. That's sort of a sad thing, but I have lots of stories if you'd like to hear those stories. By the way, let me correct you because you think it was 1975. I was born July 12, 1973, so it had to be later than that. Look at this. How could anyone believe that I'm older than that?
Well, you're a bit older than I am, but irregardless, I got to send you some shots of Rip Hawk as one of the last appearances, or the last couple of appearances he made. For me, came into my Sam Muchnick tribute 3-day weekend for the boys in St. Louis, and he was a big star for Sam Muchnick. He wasn't limited to Mid-Atlantic, obviously, or any. In fact, he even came in with the Swede to Los Angeles. They had quite a few matches for us in the early 60s, the Cal Eaton and Jules Strongbow early 60s territory. Primarily it was Jules who did all the booking, later with Charlie, Mr. Moto, Genius booking tag team. But Hawk and Hansen battled the Assassins in an unusual heel for the time period. Fantastic 5-star tag match. They also worked against and defeated Warren and his son Nick Bockwinkel, a rookie Nick Bockwinkel that year, around 62, 63. And they later had some matches in L.A. with Paul Jones and Nelson Royal. All names, Rock, that you are well aware of.
Yes, I am.
You and I are territory guys. I think and worship the territories. I'm so lucky I got to be a part of it and photograph in all of them except Calgary. And I made up for that when I got to stay at the Hart family mansion in '95 and cover that Stu Hart reunion show where all the old legends came in. But tell us, you grew up as a fan. You grew up the right way, as I say it. You watched wrestling. So did you grow up? I'm forgetting some of this, so I'm asking you. Did you grow up in the Charlotte, Norfolk, somewhere in North Carolina, watching that television, maybe watching Tennessee TV too? Or tell us about your childhood in wrestling.
My childhood. I was born, as I said, July 12, 1973. Let me tell you everything there is to know about my childhood. To answer your question, I grew up in central North Carolina, a little place called Burlington. And when I was 14 years old, I was very, very shy, very skinny. I would sit in the back of the classroom and be afraid that I wouldn't know what to do if the teacher would call on me and I would have to speak aloud. I knew nothing would come out. And my biggest fear, of course, would be if I were called upon and had to go to the front of the class and say something in front of the people, the other kids, because I knew that I would physically be dead before I got to the front of the room. So look at me now. But these kids were talking about Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen. They truly hated these people. It was like, who would you hate more? Adolf Hitler or Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen? And they would all say, Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen, they ought to be thrown out of the state. They are the worst wrestlers I ever seen. And they said, we're all a bunch of ignorant dirt farmers. I wish I'd run over them in my truck if I'd see them. So on Saturday, the following Saturday, because I had no idea what professional wrestling was. I had heard the term, but I had never watched any. But I had to see why these kids were so upset and why they hated these two men so much. So on Saturday morning, I'm sitting in the middle of my living room on an oriental rug. I had gone up to the television because you have to turn the channels by hand way back then. In case no one knows how to do that, I can still do it. And then I watched Charlie Harville come out. He was the host, and there's George Becker and Johnny Weaver. I'll make this fast as I can. George Becker and Johnny Weaver, the two biggest sweetie pie loving people. Everybody loved them. They were the good guys. And there was someone my age, maybe 14, 15, a female. And she was the president of George Becker and Johnny Weaver fan club. And she presented them with a plaque of admiration and appreciation, and then gave them a big old-fashioned plastic radio. And then I saw him, Rip Hawk, bigger than life, blonde hair, bleached blonde, suntan, cocky, condescending, arrogant. He came out and he said to Weaver, "Excuse me, could I see the gift? That's so wonderful that you have a fan club and all." I am in awe. That female president of the fan club, she's a regular person. How do regular people get on television? Only television stars get on television. But she was like a regular person, and she had two other regular people with her, and I could not figure it out. Rip says, could I see the gift they gave you? And Johnny Weaver, of course, is very reluctant, but finally he hands Rip this big plastic radio. Rip puts it above his head, smashes it into 100 pieces on the concrete, stops it, and its melee happens. And they have me. My perception is I'm watching Rip Hawk for the rest of that show, and I'm watching his face. To me, he is doing everything he can to prevent himself from smiling because he is experiencing such joy in the fact that everyone truly truly hates him and hates him to that degree. So that's why I formed the International Rip Hawk and Swede Hansen Fan Club with the motto, fair, square, modest, and honest. Do you want to hear the rest of the story? Do you want to hear how I met him?
I want to bring Russ into the conversation because he came. I think that's where you met him, Russ. You met Rock in 2007 at the Cow Palace.
That's right, at Wrestle Fan Fest. I was going to ask you a little bit about that crazy battle royale that you were in and what that was all about and how did that all get booked? Because it was seemed like some crazy, you remember though, Russ, that the whole card had to be rebooked. It was such a cluster F. Yes.
Now going into the future now Rock has participated in Cauliflower Alley Battle Royals. He defeated Impact's lead announcer Matt Stryker very last season. But Russ, on this topic though, they rebooked. Kevin Kleinrock had to rebook that whole card, but Rock, that was like a 55-man battle royal, like in Los Angeles. My home.
It was something outrageous. I don't know that it was 55, but I would not be surprised if it was not close to 50. And the whole thing was there was myself and Chavo Guerrero. And I'm sure there's some other people who were known, but it basically was us. And so the other people were like around us and doing their thing. And this is not Chavo Guerrero Jr. It's not Chavito. It's not. This is the original, the father who is no longer, unfortunately, with us. And he was in a condition that night. It was just great. I love to work with people who feel no pain. And he said, "I'm gonna suplex you backward over the top rope into the people." He says, "You trust me, don't you?" And we did it.
Yeah, no, it was. In fact, I don't even remember who won. Some mixed martial arts guy who wound up winning that never amounted to anything here in the Bay Area. So they might as well let you get over on that since you're still a Bay Area legend. So tell me, so how many years did you wrestle in the San Francisco Bay Area?
I would have to guess maybe 3. I wrestled for Roy Shire officially for, I don't know, a year or 2 years, whatever it was. And then I went down to Los Angeles, and Roy liked me. He really did. I thought he was a great promoter. I liked him as a person. I know how to work for someone, and it's not my idea. It's he who's paying me. And if he says, "Rock, go out and fall on your face and break your nose on the way to the ring," I would say, that's probably extra money in it for it. "Yes, sir. When would you like me to do that, sir?" He invited me to his ranch in Sebastopol, myself and the person who used to be around me at that time, Ruth, and you will remember that, won't you? Yes, Mike Lano. Oh, I have to bring you up to date. Not publicly like this, but oh my gosh. I don't know if
you remember, Dorothy Hopkins was sort of like the Bay Area, because that was my secondary home base. And I moved up there eventually to go to dental school, but I worked in the office with Roy's publicist, Davey Rosenberg, who owned with his dad Harold's magazine store. That's where everybody in the Bay Area got their wrestling mags in the 70s and 80s in Union Square, San Francisco on Gary Street. But before that, my primary home base from the 60s on was Los Angeles, the LaBelle, formerly Cal Jules. I thought it was the other way around. I thought you started in LA, but you started for Shire and then came down because, see, you were coming from, you hit so many territories. I'm pretty sure Florida, I'm guessing.
I hit Florida first. That's where I started.
So you didn't start. So did Rip Hawk break you in? Who broke you in?
Nope. Very good, interesting question. You're looking at the person who broke me in. Who trained me? I trained myself. I'm the only person I've ever met in this business who trained himself. And that's the honest to God truth.
We had no schools, and there
were no schools.
Story Funk Senior in Amarillo. There was Hiro Matsuda, but that was really, you had to be asked in Florida, for the Eddie Graham territory. So it was cool that, and when you went, that Eddie Graham's territory was just packed with talent, was it not? Was Bob Orton Jr. like in opening matches then? And you had Dusty and Pac Song and the Hollywood Blondes, Buddy Roberts and Jerry Brown, and Humperdinck, Red, as we called them.
Wow, yeah.
A zillion pieces of talent there. Mulligan,
Amazing
when he was
talent.
all over the place. Because Eddie Graham was like Vern Gagne. He liked guys that were tough guys. Whereas, Vern, mostly he really liked bringing in collegiate guys like Chris Taylor and obviously Kenny Patera and some of the rest of them in that very first class. He has the Khosrow Vaziri, Iron Sheik. But you were like doing the opposite. Ripper Collins and Crazy Luke Graham were touring from they came from Honolulu, and then they hit Shire and LaBelle, and then they were crisscrossing all across the country going from west to east. Then they worked for the Sheik until Eddie fired them. But you were going from east to west, it seemed like, and then your ending destination was Los Angeles. I forget, you've told me this before because I had you on Legends with Evan and I, Ginsberg, times. When you landed in Hollywood, and was it a conscious thing or did you get injured? Why did you decide to end your wrestling career there, here where I am now, and you are, and do the Hollywood thing? Do the movie TV?
I did not end my career there. I wrestled. The last time I wrestled was 2 years ago, really? And I will be wrestling again probably next year.
Right. I'm sorry.
So don't kill me yet.
You beat a young punk, a guy who's a hotshot major league indie superb talent, Matt Stryker. You beat him, and I forget if both of you guys bled or it was just you. But you won that match. Can
you see the scar right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know whether it was a knee or an elbow. I will tell you it was, to the best of my knowledge, unintentional. I would also say that Matt Stryker is not an indie guy, although he's done a lot of indies. But do you realize that he came out of WWE?
Well, yes, right. But he started in the indies. He actually...
Oh, okay.
Martino hired me to do this Legends series where I was the chairside interviewer, interviewing him, Koloff, Backlund, Superstar Graham, etc., Pedro Morales. But he came in when we did 9 different docs, and then I wanted a bunch of young guys. So he came in with the SATs and Prince Nana and all these Ring of Honor great talents. But yeah, he then went into WWE where he was doing the school teacher heel character. He did commentary, did Lucha Underground, and now he's with Impact, and tremendous guy. So I'm putting him over, but I mean
and you should,
that are on that everybody loves, that are main eventing in AEW, the guys that were formerly indie top stars, and you even see it in WWE. So what I meant was, I misspoke, was you retired for X period of time to concentrate on acting, circa 76, 77. And was that a conscious decision, or how did the acting career morph from, your long, fantastic wrestling career?
Oh, thank you. And Matt Stryker is a consummate professional, and he is one of the people I wanted to wrestle, and I finally got to do it, and that was fantastic. So there's another one off of that list of things that I want to do. I was at the Olympic Auditorium, and Leo Garibaldi was booking. And I said, Leo, while I'm here wrestling here, I think I'll do some acting. And Leo said, it's a pipe dream. It will never happen. Millions of people say it. Rock, I'll tell you what, you try to do that, you're going to call me in 6 or 8 weeks. You're going to be starving. You're going to beg me to book you again. And you're going to be too skinny, because it will never, ever happen. I said, okay. 3 weeks later, I'm in the dressing room, and Leo's in there again. And I said, Leo, NBC TV, Thursday night, 8 o'clock. With a big grin on my face. And he just looked at me like, I can't believe that. So I continued wrestling. But every time I was in the dressing room and I had something new, I would say, Leo, watch ABC TV. I'm doing a semi-recurring on this particular show, etc. So never did the acting take over. I got away from the wrestling for a while, and it was because, as most things are that are horrible in your life, leaving the wrestling business was horrible in my life. And it was because of a woman who said, why don't you do something else? You're getting older. You can't wrestle. You slimy person, you horrible, horrible person. I would choke her if I could because she was wrong. I should choke myself for listening.
I remember that girl. If it was the 75, 76 girl, she was beautiful too. Didn't she have a fancy car, from what I recall?
I have no idea who you're talking about. I don't remember. Fancy car? No, not this one. But she served her purpose.
We went and ate with her either someplace on Fairfax near where the KCOP studios were, which you never got to work at because I think Greg Valentine got us kicked off Channel 13 TV before you came in. Months before you came in. That's a long story for another show. But I have a call here from a Mr. Walter Fang from the Soupy Sales show. You knew W as in White Fang. There's two nostalgia channels. One of them is Retro Channel and the other one is Jewish TV that show Soupy reruns every single day. And they constantly show you doing the heel promo on I forget who's interviewing. It's not Dick Lane or anybody of note or Bill Welsh, legendary wrestling announcers who did tons of other stuff, Hollywood actors. And then you came to the door because Soupy Sales, one of his two dogs, the white dog,
White Thing,
the meanest dog in the world, was trashing you, sending you letters, trashing you. So you come to the house to kick what you think is a human being's ass, but it turns out to be a quote-unquote giant dog, Soupy Sales dog. Can you tell us a little about that? Because that's pretty major. And then I think you were on the Gong Show pretty much more than any of the other contestants, other than the hosts like Artie Johnson or J.P. Morgan or any of those great people. The famous '30s McGuire singer, what was her name? Dorothy McGuire, Patty McGuire. But how did the Gong Show? Tell us a little about that, because that's pretty major, and everybody knows you from that around the world.
Okay. And by the way, Soupy Sales, what a wonderful man he was. I so miss him. And it was wonderful working with that man. All right. I had a friend of mine in the acting business who said, hey, there's something called the Gong Show, and you go on and you do these dumb acts, and you get paid for it if you're professional, if you're a union member. And it's fun. You should do something. I don't know. So I watched it. I watched one of the shows, and I said, this is very interesting. So I put together something. I put together beating up a dummy, including high elbow drop, and breaking boards, 2-inch thick boards. I had a lady assistant dressed as a magician's assistant who was very, very nice. I used 3 different ones for 3 different shows to do that act or versions of it. And I sang. People say badly, but I made a lot of money. And here's the thing about Chuck Barris. Chuck Barris told me, he gave me a great, great compliment. He says, Rock, you are the first person other than myself who has a total understanding of what the Gong Show is. Because other people, they took it totally seriously, or they took it totally as a joke, and they didn't understand what it was that he was doing. But I did. He offered me, well, here's the thing. Every time I went to the studio, no matter how busy he was, he would sit down with me. He would say, Rock, come over here, sit down. So how's everything going for you? And he would talk for like 15, 16, 20 minutes. And at that point, he was worth $17 million. And yes, I had the wrestling background, but I don't know that he was a wrestling fan. But he took a liking to me because of my understanding of what he was doing. I did an escape routine, El Magnifico, with the sombrero that Roddy Piper gave me that he wore at the Olympic. And I think it was one of the nights that he was stabbed, the Olympic Auditorium in Los Angeles. So I have that. I did a straitjacket escape routine where I could not escape. And I fell down the stairs, took a little bump down the stairs. And Chuck came over and he said, Rock, I'm going to leave you here for the rest of the show as long as you don't take any attention away from other stuff. I said, I'm a professional. I'm just going to lie here. So for the rest of the show, you could see after they did the other acts, they would go back for a long shot, and there's Rock on the floor in the straitjacket, still can't get out. But Chuck Barris was a wonderful man, another person I miss a lot.
Oh, he's a genius, and I hope everybody has seen that George Clooney movie on him that he directed and produced, which was just fantastic. You know, whether he was a CIA agent or not. Was it Something of a Dangerous Mind?
Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yeah, that was terrific. Russ, Rock, we're gonna have to have you back. One thing I want to bring on when you come back is back on Legends. I always bring this up because
actually we have a breaking bulletin, which is that Ryan is caught up with the pay-per-view isn't over and he's still watching it, so we can go longer with Rock. We can. Okay, we can.
I was going to say I want to bring Rock back after Cauliflower Alley. I've got rheumatoid arthritis, which is an autoimmune. So even though I'm doubly vaccinated and I'd be wearing a mask, as you know, everybody has to do it indoors at the Vegas CAC, I want to bring Rock back for a report on CAC, everything that happened. I'm pretty sure, Rock, you're still going, right? A lot of people are not for health reasons, like our referee honoree, who you knew well from our LA office, the great Art Williams. So they'll have to give him his award. But you know, or mail it or what have you. Hopefully he'll still be remembered. But about 18 years ago, I brought Soupy and Paul Winchell on the show I did with Evan called Legends together. And for once, I shut up. I introduced them and I just let them talk between themselves. And they were talking about children's TV, and Paul Winchell had a children's network and he was trying to acquire Soupy's shows and stuff because they were clean and wholesome, at least the second version. The first version, if you look at Soupy in the 50s and 60s, the New York shows, WNEW, they were way edgier and brilliant, like Ernie Kovacs stuff. That's how brilliant Soupy was. And when he redid the stuff, I think at Channel 5 on, wasn't it on Sunset near Gower? In the 70s, mid-70s, like 76 through 78, 79, the color Soupy sales. They weren't as edgy, but they were different. They had all the old elements, the puppet clown or the puppet lion, whose name escapes me right now, and he had White Fang and Black Tooth and all of the other elements. But it wasn't as you know, he didn't have like what he had in the 50s. There would be a lot of silent, just music things, and he'd do Red Skelton pantomime. I just thought both of those gentlemen were geniuses. They were my two non-wrestling idols. Obviously, Luthez was. Who were some of your idols besides Rip and maybe Swede? Who you know? You remember Swede did get a big push. He went to Vince Sr. He wrestled for 3 years. Swede Hansen very briefly started as a heel, turned face, was a beloved, like a third-tier babyface, but he was huge. He must have been elated to gone to the big show, which was Tri-WF, Vince McMahon Sr.
Right. Rip Hawk was the most influential person in my life ever. And it was because of him that I was exposed to the professional wrestling business. So not only did he change my life, but in a way I feel as though he gave me life through his character and through his friendship, which came as a result of, I can tell you those stories too. I know we don't have enough time right now to get deep into it, but when you bring me back, if you will remind me about my first face-to-face meeting as this skinny little 14-year-old shy kid who was going to meet Rip Hawk in person.
I think he probably imbued you, or he helped you get that confidence, which it would come in spades. You went from one extreme as a fan, and then to the loquacious, the great promos, all that stuff. Because I mean, you even look at the Soupy promo against a puppet dog with just cloth arms, and it was pretty amazing. Do you remember who that announcer was? Was that guy any kind of sports announcer? He wasn't from wrestling, actually.
I believe he was a well-known announcer. I don't remember his name, but when you watch the show, I believe they're using his real name when he's introduced. When Soupy says, let's go to, oh my gosh, look at this. Name here is about to interview your favorite wrestler, Rock Riddle. oh, I know you don't like him, but etc. And then it went on from there.
So Rock.
Yes, sir.
Can you tell me about how you came up with the name Mr. Wonderful and the controversy that it was created by calling yourself the original Mr. Wonderful or the real?
There was no controversy.
Oh.
There, dearly departed Mr. Paul Orndorff, I believe, thought that maybe, and it may have been an idea of Roddy's. I never asked him, but maybe Roddy said to him, "Hey, you need a gimmick, and Rock's really not active right now in the business. He has this Mr. Wonderful thing. Why don't you use that?" And again, I have no idea whether that's true or not.
Yeah, that's Roddy told that story because Vince didn't want to call him the Brandon Bull, which is what he was known. Gordon Soley tabbed him that in Florida and, of course, Georgia Championship, and he used it in Mid-Atlantic. And so when Vince was rating all those talents from Ricky Steamboat, et cetera, Jesse Ventura, Hogan, Okerlund, David Schultz, et cetera, Piper, that's what he told me. And he, Roddy had a lot of chair shots to the head, et cetera. So he was like, he couldn't quite remember, but he was going, "Oh yeah, I don't think the original one is using it now." And Roddy had a lot of chair shots. Russ knows this. When I was hired to introduce him at a lot of his book signings, on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And I went through all this trouble. I got in San Francisco. I got the San Francisco bagpipe troupe to come in and play him in through the elevator and all of that stuff. But he would have me introduce him, and I had to do the warm up for a half hour prior to that. But he would start telling stuff, and then he would, he would go, I came into Los Angeles in 1972. And he'd look at me in the front where he'd go, "Right, Mike?" And I go, "Nope, it was January 10th, 1976. In a baby face, 10-minute Broadway with Tony Rocco. And then our genius booker at the time, Leo Garibaldi, within a week at the San Diego venue, which was on a Monday, had turned you into the bagpipe playing heel. Because Roddy was just opener in Winnipeg and Kansas City and Houston when Bastien first was sending him to San Francisco, and he was just going to do a one-shot in L.A. And Garibaldi and Red Bastien, who then came in from Houston, took a real liking to him and thought they could do something with him. And I have another.
Doc, where did you come up with the name Mr. Wonderful? How did it?
Okay. I asked myself this question on my 16th birthday because that's the day that I decided, yes, I will become a professional wrestler. And there was never any doubt. Never. There was no plan B because there was no possible failure. So I said, if I could sit front row ringside and watch my ultimate hero or anti-hero, the greatest wrestler ever, what would he look like? He would be bleached blonde. He would be suntan. He would have the wraparound sunglasses. He would be cocky and condescending and arrogant, just like Rip Hawk. He would look down his nose at the fans. What would he be? He would be Mr. Wonderful. He would have a little bit of Jack Briscoe. He would have a little bit of all of these other people, but it would mostly be him. He would be really good on the microphone. He would be able to work that microphone. And I did interviews when I was a kid in the Mirror, and I remember the day when I did one, and I looked at it afterward, and I said, "You're better than most of the guys who are like doing main events right now." And I said that to myself, and it was just an observation, but I have a gift of gab, and I know how to make people dislike me. So it was just something that I created. And had anyone come to me and said, "Rock, if you're not really active right now, we'd like to use that name," I probably would have said, "Yeah, go ahead. I don't care. I've got this female person who's telling me I should not be doing this, do something else." Boy, I guess I showed her when I did my comebacks over and over and over and over.
Lots of did your comeback start at Cauliflower Alley like 10 years ago at our Monday night shows, or was it on some other shows? Because I know you've done other shows in and around the SoCal, NorCal areas besides that ill-fated Cow Palace fiasco. Because
I like
No
that.
one's tried one since. That was in 2007, and no one has tried to do one ever since. So
No one could after that.
yeah, no, that talk
Here's
about
the problem.
burned bridges and salted earth.
Yeah, the problem was the husband and wife promoting team. They were first timers. They had lied to all of these wrestlers like Snuka and Nikolai Volkov and Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake Ed Leslie and many, many others, all the TNA wrestlers. The guy claimed he was a retired San Francisco cop who'd been shot in the line of battle. And that was all BS. And they conned a lot of them to, I don't know how, because these are guys like Harley Race and Bockwinkel that you damn well should not cheat.
No.
They convinced, and some real tough
Well,
guys.
Scott Norton, man, he was so angry.
Steiners, Warlord.
He got paid. He got paid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The tough guys got paid, but there were quite a few. Roddy beat the shit out of the husband, this guy. We don't even know. He had so many different names: Chris Kramer, Chris Salisbury, all these alleged names. They fled with the cash box on night 2. The cash box for both the MMA guys and the wrestlers.
Yep.
But some had not been paid, like Snuka and Nikolai Volkov. And they canceled all the hotel rooms. So nobody on night 2 and night 3, particularly night 3, that Sunday. It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I'm with all the talent. We're all just sleeping in the hotel lobby. I'm talking ECW Francine and Don Marie and just a wealth of good people. He canceled their hotel rooms for those nights and then their flights home. So they fled. We had the cops in pursuit of them. They fled. They went across the Nevada state line and were not caught. But they did catch the tertiary guy, and he had to cough up any of the proceeds from day 3. And I went out there personally to the limos because there was a San Francisco eye doctor, Mark, a money Mark, who paid and brought in Steve Austin and Goldberg to do signings, as well as China. And I went out and talked to each individually on that Sunday and warned them what was going on. They had no clue that this was the biggest ripoff in the biz. And so when we talk about that, I just want to ask you, though, Rock, before we let you go and have you plug some things like Hollywood Success, your upcoming book that I'm going to have photos in, and it's going to be terrific. Everybody's going to want it, historians, people in Japan, etc. But briefly, name the territories that you worked in, because you worked in probably more than many or most anyone I know, bopping from territory to territory, which was really an incredible experience because that was the primo time. That was the 70s. It doesn't get better than that. And then who did you like working in each place? Like, for example, in Florida, could it be Jack and Jerry Briscoe? But tell us, Florida was the first.
I'm sorry?
So Florida was your first territory after you trained?
Florida, Georgia. I was all over.
AWA, you were?
AWA, I loved it. Worked there for about 9 months for Vern Gagne. That was amazing. I've got so many stories I can tell you. We could go for weeks and months, and it looks like this book is going to end up being a 2-volume set the way it is right now. And just let me do this, if I can see it. Simply Wonderful, of course, is the title of the book. The choice, serial killer, suicide, or legend. Welcome to my universe. An intimate and brutally honest autobiography by professional wrestling's original Mr. Wonderful, Rock Riddle. So all the private part of me is being exposed. Not my private parts being exposed, but the private part of me that has never been seen. I'm a very private person, and there are a lot of things that are going to come out in the book, I think, that will help people, and they'll say, oh my gosh, you, Rock Riddle, you positive person, you were one time long ago in your life, you were up all night on the phone with suicide prevention?
Oh.
Wow.
Oh.
Can you tell us about that? Yeah, read the book. I've learned so much. And the fact that I've been through so much wonderful, so much horrible, so much loss, so much pain, and so much joy, that by me sharing that with people, I think people like the night I was up all night on the phone, and the results of that and what led up to it and what my realization was. I think people will see that, and maybe if they're thinking in the wrong ways, they'll start thinking in the right ways.
With the Daffney situation, do you have any advice you'd want to give our listeners about, what happened to her and what you were able to use to help inspire yourself to get out of such a difficult situation?
No,
Well,
I'm not. I'm not going to.
Rock doesn't. Rock, hang on a sec. She was well admitted, and she was open about being bipolar, and she'd had electronic brain stimulation, or it's incorrectly called electroshock treatment. The one that died last year that took her own life, Laura, in the Stardom, the top women's group over there, she was bullied online, which is something that now comes with the territory with all this craziness, social media. People behind a keyboard can just trash somebody they don't even know, and they would never dare say that stuff to their face.
Yeah, let's hear what Rock has to say about it.
Yes, exactly.
Don Kernodle, also at the Luthez National Wrestling Alliance Hall of Fame ceremonies. What was that, a month or so ago? I was there, and I was on the panel with his brother, with Rocky, and it was, I talked about him as the human, as the person, not as the wrestler. And so it was like our way of Sergeant Slaughter and myself, and who else was there? Cowboy Bob Orton, and I don't even remember who else all was there. But he felt as though he had become a burden because of his medical conditions. So everyone was figuring out how to get him there so that he could, because he was looking forward to being honored, to being inducted into that very prestigious Hall of Fame. And unfortunately, he did not see himself the way that we saw him. It's like I have a friend who, she's gone now, but I had a friend who was a veterinarian, and I remember talking about stories, even about animals, so this might be a little easier. And she said, the dog, I have to put my dog down because he can't even walk. And I looked at her and I said, you hold on a minute. And I got him to stand up and I got him to walk. And she says, yes, but there's no quality of life there. And my thought was, and she did euthanize her dog, and she thought it was the right thing. But my information to her, what I said was, look, I'll come over, pick him up, and take him outside every day. If that, you don't kill him. Jeez. And now let's take it more to people. Because no matter what it is, no matter how much pressure you feel, I promise you, 6 months from now, if you give yourself and give all of us that honor of staying around, 6 months from now, you'll look back and you'll say, thank goodness I did not do that. Wow, I thought my whole life was gone, and look what just happened. Now I'm just beginning to experience life. See, life is a wonderful gift. Every day above ground is a good day, and every day is a wonderful opportunity to make a difference. So I can keep going, but I know we're short on time.
Let's have him plug stuff. And Rock, I'm sure you have to have done some motivational speaking all over the country.
Yes, indeed, he do. I never considered myself a motivational speaker until someone said, we need to hire a motivational speaker, and you come highly recommended. And I said, a motivational speaker? And then I said, and the people around me said, yes, you're like one of the best. I said, really? I never thought about that. Yes. Anyway, what was your question? I'm sorry. The motivational. Yes, I've done motivational speaking.
We want you to plug anything and everything. So that's cool. You went to the most prestigious Hall of Fame, the Iowa Thez Tragus Museum Hall of Fame.
For information on Rock Riddle, it's rockriddle.info. Rockriddle.info. And if you'd like to make a donation to the Buy Rock Riddle Private Jet Fund or the Rock Riddle Benevolent Fund, which is an umbrella company that encompasses the Buy Rock Riddle Private Jet Fund, the Buy Rock Riddle Private Island in the Western Caribbean Fund, the Rock Riddle Fund to fund the Rock Riddle Funds Fund, mail your money to.
How can people order the book?
Pre-order.
I don't know. I'm not even doing the pre-order. In fact, I'm going to take the book off of there. It's been on there for long enough.
But can we get it through Amazon or through rockriddle.info?
Once it's ready. See, I have no idea.
I gotta get pictures. I still gotta develop.
Yeah, if I have to wait for Mike's pictures, it could be another 20 years before I could publish this thing.
I've been quicker, better, but. The Hollywood success, you actually for decades have been helping not just wrestlers, but regular people too, right? Or boxers get into, try to finesse themselves so they're prepared as you were, and you had to do on your own. You had to invent the wheel, but you're helping people not have to do that.
Yes, I still do that. I'm a publicist, and the idea I'm not looking for work right now. I like to have free time so that I can have it for myself. I don't do those 110-hour weeks anymore. Now I have it down to about 65 for other people and the rest of the time for me. I just did a 6,687-mile road trip in 3 weeks. That was cool. We could talk about that sometime if you'd like. But I don't know what we were talking about right then.
I'm writing. So we will. So you probably drove to Iowa. Is that what you're saying?
I drove to Iowa. I avoided the state of Colorado, so I went up and I went through, Wyoming. I went over to Iowa. I spent that 3.5 days for that. Oh, that was the most amazing event, the most rewarding event that I think I've attended for many, many years. So the people who were there, they've already reserved for 2022, and I will be there. I'm a life member. I have a life membership for that Hall of Fame, for that National Wrestling Alliance organization. So, and Lou Thesz, of course, is with his name in there. I wrestled Lou Thesz. I wrestled all of these people. It was so amazing. So then I went from there. I went back west, then due south to avoid at all costs the entire state of Illinois. No, I'm not going through Illinois. I can tell you why later.
I do that with Utah, so I get you there.
Utah's okay.
Not for me it isn't, but for you
see, nobody's going to be upset that I'm there and carrying the things that I carry. Okay, so I went down to Tennessee, shot across, went to North Carolina, went out to the Outer Banks, and came back, zigzagged across, coming back, and made it a point to stop in Prescott, otherwise known as Prescott, but the people there call it Prescott, Arizona. I went to the Palace Restaurant and Saloon. I sat at the exact bar that Doc Holliday sat at, not a replica, but the exact bar. And I toasted Doc Holliday with the drink that was his drink of choice. It was called Old Overholt, and they started distilling that 1825, and it's still being made. So, and then I stayed in 2 houses away or 2 doors away at a famous haunted hotel there. But that's because
You did everything but getting a gunfight. Sounds like.
In a gunfight, I'm very good.
Oh.
That's another thing I do. I teach firearms.
Wow.
And I compete and all that sort of thing.
Wow, Mr. Riddle, you just have so many different things.
Mr.
Rock, you have so many different things that you're involved in. We really appreciate you being on the show tonight, and we'd love to have you back again as a guest.
Oh, because I want to hear. I got some more. I got another hour in me to talk to. And we have an update here. Dr. Britt Baker, the only other dentist in wrestling, legit dentist, defeated and retained her title with the Dr. Sam Shepard mandible claw on Chris Statlander. So she retained her AEW women's title. Rock, I know maybe some of those names. Well, I mean, hey, I was wrestling's legit dentist for decades, and now this beautiful female talented athlete is now the top dog as in terms of as a heel dentist character, which is amazing. You have to watch that TV, that AEW TV Wednesday and Fridays, and see what she does. I think you'd be proud of her too. Sneering heel, but beloved, particularly. I've never seen this. They bring, they go to the heel's hometown, which for her is Pittsburgh, and the place went bananas for her, even though she's insulting them and she's healed. She was just over like $1 million. I have not seen that, which is refreshing, different in the biz. So yeah, we're going to have Rock back, and maybe right after the Cauliflower Alley, which is a couple of weeks.
It's next week.
Well,
it's
yeah,
next week. It's a week from tomorrow.
Your book gets closer to publication. We'd
And
love
the
to
book
have
too.
you back on.
And the book too. So go to rockriddle.info, correct? For all things Rock Riddle?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Wonderful. And we'd love to have you on again very soon.
So we are. Whether Rock likes it or not, I'm going to nag him back onto the show. So
As soon as that $1,700 honorarium check clears, I would be happy to do it again. Not for that same price, though, because we've gone long.
You've been waiting a very long time for that to clear.
Good luck as Wells Fargo. So
it'd be the same as the 2007 Cow Palace event.
Exactly. You'll get
talk about that too.
Clear first. Anyway, thank you so much for being part of today's podcast. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks so much.
Good night,
In the spotlight again.